Elon Musk sat in his office, unusually quiet, savoring a rare moment of stillness amid the constant storm of ideas and relentless ambition that drove his extraordinary life. An intriguing thought had taken root during a recent conversation with a colleague about human behavior. What would happen if the world didn't recognize him? How would people treat a man who appeared to have nothing at all? The questions were irresistible, a challenge too compelling to ignore. Several weeks later, on a gloomy Thursday afternoon, Elon meticulously finalized his plan. His disguise was straightforward yet convincing: worn-out clothes sourced from a nearby thrift store, battered sneakers on the verge of falling apart, and a disheveled, untidy wig. A modest makeup team added subtle aging to his face, effectively masking the well-known features that regularly appeared on magazine covers and news outlets. The transformation was astonishing. Elon Musk, the renowned billionaire innovator, now resembled an ordinary man down on his luck. Elon carefully selected his destination, the Copper Elm, a high-end restaurant nestled in the heart of Santa Fe, New Mexico. Renowned for its exclusivity and sophisticated clientele, it was the ideal place to test his theory. This experiment wasn't meant to shame anyone. Instead, it was a deep dive into the intricacies of human nature. Would people be able to see past appearances, or would superficial judgments cloud their actions? The thought both intrigued and unsettled him. Before stepping out, Elon paused to take one last look in the mirror. The image staring back at him was strikingly unrecognizable, almost eerie. For the first time in years, he felt completely anonymous, detached from the powerful identity that had long defined him. Taking a steadying breath, he opened the door and ventured out, his heart racing unexpectedly. This was it. The experiment was about to begin. The drive to the Copper Elm was uneventful, the city alive with its usual buzz of activity. Yet, for Elon, every second of the journey felt electric with anticipation. As the grand double doors of the restaurant loomed closer, he hesitated momentarily, his hand poised to push them open. Then, summoning his resolve, he stepped inside, marking the official start of his daring experiment. The Copper Elm radiated an air of refined elegance. Crystal chandeliers bathed the room in a soft golden glow, illuminating perfectly arranged tables. The gentle hum of conversation mingled with the occasional clink of fine glassware. As Elon entered, his presence created a small but noticeable stir. Diners cast fleeting glances his way before returning to their meals, but the staff lingered, their eyes darting curiously in his direction. Elon stepped carefully onto the gleaming hardwood floor, each scuff of his battered shoes seeming louder than it should. A hostess, impeccably dressed in black, approached him with an air of hesitation. Her polished smile faltered slightly as she assessed his disheveled appearance. "May I assist you?" she asked, her tone courteous but edged with discomfort. "Yes," Elon answered evenly, his voice calm but soft. "I'd like a table for one." The hostess stole a quick glance toward the bar, where a manager observed them with a sharp, watchful eye. Her smile weakened further. "I'm sorry, but we're fully booked this evening," she replied hastily, though her eyes betrayed her as they flitted to several unoccupied tables nearby. Elon noticed the glance but remained silent, letting the growing tension linger in the air. Across the room, a young server named Sophia had been observing the interaction closely. She had been working at the Copper Elm for only a few months, diligently saving for culinary school. Something about the man's quiet presence piqued her interest. Not pity, but genuine curiosity. He didn't seem like just another wanderer looking for a place to escape the cold. "I can seat him," Sophia called out firmly, stepping forward before the hostess could complete her dismissal. A hush fell over the room as heads turned toward her. Even the manager's frown deepened, but he chose to remain silent. Elon gave Sophia a subtle, appreciative smile as she led him to a small table tucked away near the kitchen doors. It wasn't the most glamorous spot, but it was a place to sit, and for that, Elon was thankful. "Thank you," he said, his voice carrying genuine gratitude. "You're welcome," Sophia replied, placing a menu in front of him. "Take your time," she added warmly, brushing off the whispers that began to ripple through the restaurant. As Elon turned the pages of the menu, his sharp eyes scanned the room. The reactions from other diners were impossible to miss, furtive glances that ranged from mild curiosity to thinly veiled contempt. Bits and pieces of whispered conversations reached his ears, laden with judgment and speculation about his presence. "What's he even doing here?" one server muttered, loud enough for Elon to catch. Another replied with a scoff, "He's definitely going to scare off the regulars." Elon said nothing, making a mental note of each interaction, every small gesture painting a clearer picture of the environment around him. When Sophia returned to take his order, Elon glanced up briefly and chose something humble. "Just soup and bread," he said softly. "That's it?" she asked, her voice tinged with surprise, though still kind. "That's all," Elon confirmed with a small nod. Sophia offered no objections, instead heading toward the kitchen to relay his order. Left alone at his table, Elon could still feel the oppressive weight of judgmental stares pressing down on him from all corners of the room. Yet, instead of unsettling him, the attention only reinforced his purpose. It was easy to talk about kindness and empathy, but how often did people truly embody those ideals when it mattered most? The stage was now set, and Elon's social experiment was just getting started. As Elon quietly waited for his meal, the room seemed to bristle with unease. Soft murmurs floated through the air, diners hiding their words behind napkins while shooting him quick, judgmental glances. At a nearby table, a man leaned toward his companion and whispered, "What's management thinking, letting someone like that in here?" Elon remained stoic, his expression unreadable as he silently observed the room. He noticed everything, the hostess deliberately avoiding eye contact, the bartender sharing a sly laugh with the server, and the manager occasionally casting disapproving glances in his direction. Each reaction, subtle or overt, added another layer to the portrait of how appearances governed human judgment. Sophia soon returned, balancing a tray with practiced ease. She gently placed a steaming bowl of tomato bisque and a modest basket of bread before Elon, handling the task with the same care and precision she offered every customer. "Enjoy your meal," she said warmly, her smile carrying an authenticity that stood out against the room's cold atmosphere. "Thank you," Elon replied, meeting her eyes with the sincerity she couldn't miss. In that brief exchange, Elon sensed something different about her. This wasn't just about completing a task. Sophia's actions came from a place of genuine kindness. As Elon quietly ate his soup, his eyes followed Sophia as she moved gracefully between tables. Her pace was brisk, yet her demeanor radiated calm professionalism. She worked tirelessly, attending to each customer with unwavering poise. Even when faced with the most demanding patrons, she handled their requests with remarkable patience, refusing to let condescension rattle her composure. At one point, an older woman summoned Sophia with a sharp wave of her hand. Her voice dripped with irritation as she asked, "Why are you wasting time on him?" She gestured discreetly toward Elon, adding, "People like that shouldn't even be allowed in here." Sophia's cheeks turned a faint shade of red, but she stood firm. "I believe everyone deserves respect, ma'am," she replied, her voice steady and resolute. The woman huffed in annoyance and returned to her meal, silenced but unrepentant. Elon watched the scene unfold with quiet admiration. It wasn't easy to stand up for someone society had already dismissed, especially in a place where judgment was the unspoken currency. Yet Sophia's courage shone through, and it didn't go unnoticed. As Elon finished his modest meal, another server approached the table. This one, a man in his late 20s, carried himself with an air of impatience, his posture rigid and his expression unreadable. "Are you planning to order anything else?" he asked curtly, his tone teetering on the edge of rudeness. "No, thank you," Elon replied with calm restraint, meeting the server's gaze without flinching. The man offered a forced, tight-lipped smile before turning on his heel. As he walked away, Elon distinctly heard him mutter under his breath, "Waste of space." The words lingered, another observation for Elon's growing list. Not far from his table, a young couple sat exchanging uneasy glances. The woman leaned closer to her partner, her voice a soft but audible whisper. "What if he tries to ask us for money?" Her partner shrugged, though his face betrayed the same discomfort. Through all of this, Elon maintained his composure, his thoughts churning. This experiment wasn't solely about how he was treated. It was revealing the deeper, unspoken assumptions people carried, snap judgments made without knowing a single truth about him. When Sophia returned to clear Elon's table, she hesitated for a moment, her gaze thoughtful. "Is everything okay?" she asked softly, her voice filled with genuine concern. Elon looked up, momentarily caught off guard by the unexpected question. "Yes," he replied with quiet sincerity. "Thank you for your kindness." Her expression softened, a small but warm smile crossing her face before she nodded and moved on. In that fleeting exchange, Elon glimpsed what he had been searching for, a spark of humanity amidst the overwhelming tide of judgment. It was a small, meaningful reminder that empathy still existed, even in the most unlikely of places. The tension in the restaurant clung to the air like an unspoken truth, but Elon found himself strangely at ease. The experiment was yielding more insight than he had initially anticipated, each interaction peeling back the layers of human behavior. He knew the next phase would raise the stakes and take everything to a whole new level. The tension in the restaurant reached a boiling point as Elon rose from his seat. His meal was finished, but the experiment was far from complete. With deliberate steps, he moved toward the center of the room, each movement drawing the wary eyes of staff and patrons alike. Sophia, balancing a tray of empty glasses, froze mid-step, her gaze fixed on him with curiosity and concern. Across the room, the manager, who had been closely monitoring Elon all evening, approached quickly, his expression stern and his intentions unmistakable. "Excuse me, sir," the manager said, his tone sharp and clipped. "If you're done with your meal, I must ask you to leave the premises." Elon raised a calm hand, cutting off the man's rehearsed dismissal. His voice, steady yet firm, carried just enough authority to halt the manager in his tracks. "I'll be leaving soon," he began, "but before I go, I have something important to say." The room fell into a hushed stillness. All the diners who had spent the evening whispering and casting judgmental glances now stared openly, their expressions a mix of curiosity and annoyance. With slow, deliberate movements, Elon reached up and removed the disheveled wig that had masked his true identity. A collective gasp rippled across the room as his now familiar features emerged, features that had graced news headlines and magazine covers around the world. "Elon Musk," someone murmured, their voice tinged with shock and disbelief. Elon allowed the realization to sink in, watching as recognition spread like wildfire across the faces of the diners and staff. He took a deep breath before addressing the room, his voice calm but commanding. "Yes, it's me," he began, his eyes scanning the stunned crowd. "Tonight I didn't come here as the person you know. I came as someone you wouldn't even spare a second glance at. I wanted to understand how people treat those they perceive as having nothing." A heavy silence blanketed the room as his words sank in, the weight of their implications pressing down on everyone present. "I saw the disdain," Elon continued, his tone unwavering yet laced with quiet disappointment. "I heard the whispers, the judgment, all because of how I looked. He paused, letting the gravity of his statement settle before adding, "But amidst all of that, one person in this entire room chose to show kindness and respect." His gaze landed on Sophia, who stood motionless, her tray of glasses still clutched tightly in her hands. Her wide eyes met his, a mixture of disbelief and humility etched across her face. "Sophia," Elon called, motioning for her to come closer. "You had no idea who I was, yet you treated me with kindness, with dignity. That's the kind of character that truly matters." Sophia's cheeks flushed a deep red as she carefully placed her tray down and hesitantly stepped forward, the weight of everyone's stares pressing down on her. "I was just doing my job," she murmured, her voice so soft it was almost inaudible. "No," Elon countered gently, shaking his head. "You did more than your job. When it would have been easier to ignore or dismiss me, you chose empathy. You looked past what everyone else couldn't." Around the room, the other diners turned their gazes toward Sophia. Their faces revealed a mix of emotions, some filled with guilt, others with newfound admiration for the young server who had shown them what true compassion looked like. Turning his attention back to the room, Elon addressed the gathered crowd, his voice steady and purposeful. "To those of you who judged me tonight, take this as a lesson. Appearances can be deceiving. The way you treat others, especially those you think have nothing, reveals everything about who you are." With that, he reached into his pocket and retrieved a small envelope, extending it toward Sophia. "This is for you," he said, his tone warm but resolute. Sophia's hands trembled as she carefully opened the envelope. Inside, she found a handwritten note and a check. She began reading the note aloud, her voice shaking with emotion. "Sophia, thank you for your kindness. Use this to follow your dreams. Culinary school, your own restaurant, whatever you choose. The world needs more people like you." As she finished the final words, her voice broke and tears streamed down her face. The check slipped from her hands and fluttered to the floor. Written for $50,000, it sparked an audible gasp from the room, followed by a wave of murmured disbelief and awe. Elon shifted his focus to the manager, who stood frozen in place, clearly taken aback by the unfolding events. "And for this restaurant," Elon said firmly, "take this as a reminder to foster a culture of respect for everyone who steps through your doors, no matter who they appear to be." The manager, visibly flustered and at a loss for words, nodded quickly but remained silent. The room hung in a mix of stunned silence and hushed whispers of apology as Elon began walking toward the exit. Just before stepping out, he paused and turned back to Sophia. His gaze softened as he spoke. "Never let go of that spark of kindness," he said with a faint smile. "It's rare, and it's powerful." With those parting words, Elon stepped out into the night, the door closing quietly behind him, leaving the restaurant and its patrons to reflect on their actions and the lasting impact of a single act of compassion. The stillness lingered long after Elon Musk had disappeared through the doors. The restaurant, once filled with judgmental whispers and quiet sneers, now brimmed with an uneasy silence. Patrons who had scoffed at Elon only moments earlier sat awkwardly at their tables, shifting in their seats. Some stared intently at their plates, unwilling to meet the eyes of those around them, while others nervously fiddled with their utensils. Sophia stood at the heart of it all, the note still clasped tightly in her trembling hands. A swirl of emotions played across her face: gratitude, disbelief, and an unmistakable sense of pride. The manager approached Sophia cautiously, his usual air of authority replaced with a noticeable awkwardness. For the first time that evening, he seemed unsure of what to say. "You handled yourself well tonight," he finally managed, his voice uncharacteristically soft. Sophia looked up, her expression measured and unreadable. "Thank you," she replied politely, though her tone carried a hint of distance. She couldn't ignore the irony of his words. He had been among the first to cast doubt on Elon's presence, and now his sudden shift in attitude felt hollow, a gesture that came too late to matter. At a nearby table, a family who had earlier been openly gawking at Elon huddled together in hushed whispers. The father let out a deep sigh, his expression a blend of guilt and regret. "We shouldn't have judged him like that," he confessed quietly to his teenage son, who nodded in somber agreement. At another table, a woman dabbed at her eyes with a napkin, her voice trembling as she turned to her partner. "What if we've treated others the same way?" she asked softly. "People we didn't even notice, people who might have needed kindness instead of judgment." Sophia returned to her duties, moving quietly between tables as she cleared plates and reset settings. Yet the weight of the evening's events hung heavy in the air. Every glance from the diners carried an unspoken apology, a silent acknowledgement of the lesson they had all unwittingly been a part of. The atmosphere, once cold and judgmental, now felt introspective. Each person left grappling with their own thoughts, and the realization of how easily appearances could cloud compassion. As the night drew to a close, Sophia stepped into the quiet sanctuary of the kitchen to gather herself. Pulling the note from her apron, she unfolded it with trembling hands and read Elon's words again, letting them sink in. Beneath his heartfelt message of thanks, one final line stood out. "Kindness is the currency that never loses its value. Keep spending it." Her chest tightened with emotion as the simple yet profound words filled her with renewed purpose. Carefully, she folded the note and tucked it back into her pocket, knowing it was something she would treasure forever, a lasting reminder of what truly mattered. As the last table was cleared and the restaurant staff began their nightly cleanup, the air felt noticeably different. Gone was the usual banter and light-hearted chatter. It had been replaced by a quiet, contemplative mood. At the end of the shift, the team gathered as they always did, though this time the atmosphere was heavy with introspection. The manager, who typically exuded confidence, spoke with uncharacteristic humility. "Tonight was unusual," he started, his voice measured as he carefully chose his words. "I think we all have something to reflect on after what happened. Moving forward, let's ensure this place lives up to the standards we claim to represent." Sophia noticed a few of her co-workers glancing in her direction, some even offering her small, respectful smiles. She didn't crave their approval, but it was comforting to know her actions had made an impression. As she stepped out of the restaurant into the cool night air, the envelope safely tucked away in her bag, a wave of renewed determination washed over her. The money would certainly transform her future, but the lesson she had experienced tonight held even greater power. It would forever shape how she saw and navigated the world. Outside, the city hummed with its familiar rhythm, cars passing by and distant chatter filling the air. Yet, to Sophia, the world seemed different, sharper, brighter, and more alive. Elon Musk's experiment had left an indelible mark, not just on her, but on the restaurant and everyone who had been present to witness it. In the end, it wasn't about wealth or recognition. It was a testament to the extraordinary power of a single act of kindness, a reminder that even the smallest gestures can resonate in the most unexpected ways.